Right, I'm going to try and get through this quickly because I know you're here for the songs, not for the story about the songs. And I'm going to say that most of what happened with ballads, unsurprisingly, is about GAA, but also that the ballad tradition predates the foundation of the GAA. And we have the only thing we know about a lot of what happened in sport, in popular sport, comes from ballads. Horse racing enjoyed this huge boom in the 1740s, and very often what we get from the ballad is not really the events on the field, but their impact on popular culture. There's no doubt an awful lot happened between around 1745 and 1752 in terms of horse racing and popular culture. We have the names of 108 horses who won the King's Plate. Most of them are largely meaningless today, but something really exciting happened in the 1740s. And all we know about those horses comes from the ballads. We know their colours, we know their owners, sometimes we know their jockeys, but most importantly, we know that those horses could talk. We know that the Podreen mare, when it came up against Black and All Black, had a conversation. Ralph Gore was as establishment as you're going to get in 1750s Ireland. His father was Speaker of the Irish House of Commons, and his father-in-law, William Connolly, who built Castletown House, he was Speaker of the Irish House of Commons. He bought this horse called Othello. For some reason, he called him Black and All Black when he raced in Ireland. Now, we don't know if she ever raced against the champion mare at the time, but the champion mare at the time was white. You can see an Ashling theme creeping in here. And the horse was Catholic, or at least the Archibald family who owned the horse in Eadstown were Catholic. So the Podreen mare got her name from the fact that when she raced, she had rosary beads around her neck. And this immense event, Catholic Ireland against Protestant establishment Ireland, as I say, the establishment being more important than the religion, just captured the mood of the people. Both were winners of the King's Plate, and we don't know whether they raced against each other. But this is 1749, and it's Henry Brooke. Henry Brooke wrote musical plays. He put the Podreen mare in his play, Jack the Giant Killer, pretty straightforward musical play, but it became apparent to everyone who went that all the characters in Jack the Giant Killer were identifiable members of the Dublin Castle regime, and that the Podreen mare was the ballad put in the middle of it, and of course was joined in enthusiastically by the ordinary people of Dublin. I don't know if Des Geraghty's ancestors were amongst them, because here was Catholic Ireland defeating Protestant establishment Ireland in a horse race. Jack the Giant Killer was shut down by the authorities the night after it opened. A few years later, the same horse, 1752, Black and All Black, it's up against Skewball. It's owned by Randall MacDonald from County Antrim. Skewball, again, a ballad. The horse gets to talk. But this ballad showed up on the other side of the Atlantic, becomes very influential. Woody Guthrie recorded, ended up on the folk circuit, the pop circuit indeed in the 1960s, and an inspiration to John Lennon, War Is Over, the Christmas anthem. Relevant that William Kelly, the man who invented Dan Donnelly, the promoter of the time, was an uilleann piper. He would have known the power of ballads. So we had this flood of ballads about a prize fighter called Dan Donnelly. Anyone who's been to the Hideout pub in Kilcullen when his arm was on display there, yes, it's a fake. But Dan Donnelly's legend far outranked anything he achieved. And he basically was involved in two major prize fights, which drew huge crowds of 20,000. They weren't for the unofficial world prize fight title at the time, but they did involve Ireland, boxer from Ireland against a boxer from England. Lots of help from the fact that Dan Donnelly died young. This is Hibernia lamenting the death of her great prize fighter. People would be very familiar with Morrissey fighting the Russian sailor. It sometimes involved marketing, which brings us to the 1867 Waterloo Cup, Ireland against England. Again, nobody has heard of the Waterloo Cup. It's a coursing event. Coursing is so out of fashion that it's hard to believe. But the only reason anybody can even thinks about the Waterloo Cup nowadays is because of this Ireland versus England battle. The dog called Lobelia was renamed Rose, champion of England, for the ballad. And we have this notion that odds of 5,000 to 1 were given song. And of course, Rose and Master McGrath both have a conversation in the course of it. And in keeping with the fact that the event is bigger than the actual race, the 1960s, Arkle against Millhouse, come at the year, come at the man, come at the horse, and come at the ballad. Dominic Bean wrote the Ballad of Arkle, dominated the charts in a way that sporting ballads probably never do. And of course, it was Ireland against England, including the mock Oxford accent finish, where the English give the excuses why.
What can we English say? The ground was around, the distance long, too early in the day.
And of course, the GAA ballad goes back a long, long way. Thomas Crofton Croker, without exaggeration, our goalers take their station. For the highest approbation, they have won their victory. 'Twas in no combination or field association, but in rural relaxation on the plains of Onabui. Ballads, and Kerry arose 1900. It hadn't won anything for the first 20 years of the GAA and have been making up for it since. And this was given to me by the poet Brendan Kennelly. Free to Kerry, Con Brosnan took it with steady foot and unerring aim. He scored the point, and again we led them. 'Twas the final point of the hard-fought game. Hats off to Brosnan, our midfield wonder. He's par excellence in feet and hands. Oh, where's the gale can pull down the number of Kerry's idol from Newtown sands. And of course, the great Sigerson Clifford, author of The Boys of Borna Shroja, Hunting for the Ram. We still chalked up the scoreboard, and the chalk was green and gold, said the tailor, white teeth grinning like a shark. Sure, we only took their measure, and we'll cut their cloth to scale when next we take the ghost train for Croke Park. The ghost train central to Kerry tradition because it left shortly after midnight, and in case the turf would go teetotally out, as Percy French wrote, it took a long time to get to Dublin to get to the match. That was written about the 1926 All-Ireland final. Kerry and Kildare drew, and Kerry won the replay as the tailor predicted. This is an example of how the GAA has changed, by the way. This is Joe Loughlin coming out. He's about to play in the All-Ireland final, and he goes over to his mate for a cigarette. How times have changed. And of course, the great Brian McMahon. This is the Ballad of Christy Ring. How oft I've watched him from the hill move here and there in grace, in Cork, Killarney, Thurles town, or by the Shannon's race. Now Cork is bet, the hay is saved, the thousands wildly sing. They speak too soon, my sweet Garsoon, for here comes Christy Ring. The hay saved and Cork bet is a great Munster phrase. I don't know if it works for the hay being put into roundy bales. And Brian McMahon wrote the Ballad of Tommy Daly. Tommy Daly died tragically in September 1936. He played in the All-Ireland final for Clare just 4 years before. Brian published the ballad within days, certainly within weeks of the death of Tommy Daly, and it's iconic ballad. Wherever Clare does battle and whoever guards the goal, whene'er the citadel is saved, the proud noble soul of Sterling Thomas Daly, they shall recall and say, God rest you, Thomas Daly, on your wine-swept hill today. I think it's marvellous that one of the best GA ballads doesn't actually mention the player it's about. Tom Williams, Coo Cullen's son, makes no mention whatsoever about Nicky Rackard. Well, we know that Slither can sing, we know that horses can talk, we know, thanks to Master McGrath, that dogs can talk, and indeed foxes can talk and even make a will. It's going to be a very interesting evening.